Hey guys, I wanted to make this quick video and show something that I find really interesting. If we take a look here in 2 Peter 3:16, we're going to look at something, and it says, as also in all his epistles, speaking in them of these things. Okay, he's talking about Paul and Paul's writings in the Bible, okay, in which are some things hard to be understood. This is what Peter is saying about Paul's writings, that some of it is hard to be understood. Then notice what he says next. He says, which they that are unlearned and unstable wrestle, as they do also the other scriptures, unto their own destruction. Now, I just noticed this just today. Check out that word, the unlearned. Okay, because we know what we've been going through the verses is that when Paul was a Pharisee, and he was educated, and he thought he knew the entire Old Testament, and he thought he knew the kingdom of God. But God had to teach Paul. Paul had to unlearn everything that he thought he knew, because it was almost all wrong. He had to actually take him to the wilderness and reveal to him the truth, because it was all wrong. The Jews' religion, all of it, almost all of it was error. But notice the word unlearn is right here in this verse. It says, which they that are unlearned. And that is so funny, because you guys, when we come to the scriptures, if we've learned from church and from religions of the earth and in the world, what we often have to do if we want to know the truth of the Bible, this is what I'm seeing in my experience, that we have to unlearn everything that we've ever been taught. Almost everything. It's that there's that much error in false doctrine, in the beliefs about the things about God. And there we see the word unlearn right here in this verse. I just thought that was so cool. I wanted to share that, because I'm like, wow, that makes perfect sense. But just to kind of give you an example, you guys, if we jump back up here at... Well, first let's look at this verse. This is Romans 16:25. And it says, we'll look at verse 26. But now is made manifest, and by the scriptures of the prophets, according to the commandment of the everlasting God. Okay, it's through the scriptures. Okay. Notice verse 25, the context. It says, now to him that is of power to establish you according to my gospel, and the preaching of Jesus Christ, according to the revelation of the mystery, which was kept secret since the world began. God revealed and taught this mystery. He unveiled it to Paul, so Paul could teach the whole world. The disciples, the Christians, the Jews, and all the Gentiles, everybody. Okay. Now if we look here in verse... Let's look in Galatians 1:11. And it says right here, and Paul says, but I certify you, brethren, that the gospel which was preached of me is not after man. For I neither received it of man, neither was I taught it. You guys see what he's saying? He did not receive this gospel from any man that was on the earth. Disciples, nobody. And then he also says that he neither received it, okay, or he was not taught it. So nobody taught him these things. He was not taught it in a university. He was not taught it in the schools, in Sabbath school, in the churches. But he says, but by the revelation of Jesus. This is how he learned it. And that's vital, because look what he says down here. He says, you have heard of my conversation in the time past in the Jews' religion, how that beyond measure I persecuted the church of God and wasted it. He talks about the Jews' religion. That's what he was in. Well, they had the wrong religion, you guys. It was a man-made traditional religion that taught errors, that Satan got in and deceived everybody. Okay? That is absolutely vital. I love going over this stuff. And then if we look in Galatians 1:17, notice what it says. It says, "Neither went I up to Jerusalem to them which were apostles before me, but I went into Arabia, and returned again unto Damascus. Then after 3 years I went up to Jerusalem to see Peter, to live with him for 15 days. You guys check this out. In order to teach Paul this gospel, this truth about the scriptures, notice he did not send him to Jerusalem. He took him away from Jerusalem. He did not send him to the apostles, to the disciples, to the Christians of that time. He took them away from the Christians and the disciples. All of them, Peter, everybody. And he didn't send them to a seminary or to a university. Okay, this is what he did. He sent him into Arabia, in the wilderness, in isolation, so that he could teach him the truth, so he could have no distractions. Think about that. Isn't that incredible? I can't get over that. It's absolutely mind-blowing that I've never read these things before. So, there's another one. There's one more point I wanted to show you. Let's look at Acts 9:15. And the Lord said unto him, he's talking to Ananias here, because Ananias was doubting God. He was like, Lord, this Paul is an evil man, and he was trying to tell God that, you can't be serious about this man. Like God doesn't know, you know what I mean? And notice what God says to him. He says, "Go thy way, for he is a chosen vessel unto me, to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel." So Paul was chosen to teach the entire world about Christ and about the true gospel. That's why some of the things, you guys, in 2 Peter, when it said that he wrote many things that are hard to be understood, well, that's why. It's because they're not things that are being taught. And I guess you would say the norm, what the church teaches, what men teach. What Paul taught was different than everybody else at that time, because God had to teach him. He had to unlearn many of his prior beliefs. And we're going to end at this one verse. And this has to be why Paul says this in Galatians 1:20, okay? Because he knew everybody was gonna be like, we've never heard things like that before, you know what I mean? Because Paul was the only one at this time that had this understanding that God taught him. And look what it says. Paul says, Galatians 1, he opens up and tells the church, he says, "Now the things which I write unto you, behold, before God I lie not." Why would he open by saying that? Because he knew people were going to accuse him of being a liar and teaching things that people have never heard before. Because Satan had misconstrued and had the gospel so twisted that by the time Jesus got there, think about it, you guys, by the time Jesus got there, his own people, the Jews, thought he was a sinner, and he wasn't. But it's because they weren't keeping the law or the religion or the Bible the right way. None of them were. Oh, that is actually, I made a verse on that too. I made a note here. The Jews had it all wrong. They may have had some truth, but most of it, they had it all wrong. False doctrine, they taught lies to the people, and the disciples would have been taught all these lies too, you guys. I mean, they would have grown up in the churches and the synagogues. They thought that Jesus was a sinner. They weren't keeping the Sabbath the right way. They didn't understand none of the prophecies, even though the prophecies told them that the Messiah, when he comes, he's going to have to die. And in the middle of the last week, he's going to have to be crucified. The scriptures tell us all these things. That's why the gospel was taken from them, because they were no longer teaching the gospel. So God, if they weren't going to do it, he had to give it to new people that were going to teach it. It's the same gospel. That's why a lot of people think that the Christian church is like a new church. It's like a different church than Israel. It's the same church. It was just taken from Israel because they no longer taught it. They were deceived in all their points and all their doctrine and their prophecies So God couldn't use them anymore, so he had to give this same message to a different group of people that would believe it and that would teach it. So that's what happened. It's the same exact church. The Christian church is it's still the Jewish nation, the Jewish church that's in the world. We just call it the Christian church, but it's the identical church. Let's look at I can't remember which one it was. Well, I guess we could end here and we could look at Acts. Well, let's look at John 5:18. And it said, "Therefore the Jews sought the more to kill him, because he not only had broken the Sabbath, but said also that God was his Father, making himself equal with God." You guys see that? They accused him of breaking the Sabbath. Well, we know that Jesus never broke the Sabbath because he wasn't a sinner. But what he did is he broke the Jewish Sabbath. It wasn't God's Sabbath. They were keeping it the wrong way. And then he claimed to be the Son of God, which made himself equal with God. And they called that was error too, and it wasn't. There's another one too. Let's look at Matthew 9:11. What is that one? "And when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto his disciples, Why eateth your master with publicans and sinners?" You see, they looked down on Jesus because the Jews thought they were better than everybody else, and they would never sit down and eat with publicans or with sinners or with common people. But Jesus came and he sat with those people and talked with them and taught them and loved them, because the Jews were all supposed to be doing that. But none of them were doing it, you guys. The entire nation had stopped doing that, and they had all thought they were better than everybody else because they were Abraham's literal bloodline. And that's why Jesus came and he taught them and says, "You're all wrong. You are all deceived. That's not the way it is." The Pharisees were supposed to be sitting down eating with these sinners because they themselves are sinners. We all are. So they were supposed to be ministering to these people and trying to bring them into the Israel, into the true God. So you guys see, the entire nation of Israel was deceived. So it's absolutely fascinating. And then we learned that Paul was the one that was chosen. He had to unlearn everything, and then God revealed to him all the true doctrine of the scriptures. And then Paul rose up, and then he went off to teach the Christians and everybody else. So fascinating stuff, because I never knew that before. So okay, that's going to be it for this, guys. I just wanted to kind of make a couple points on this. So that'll be it for now. I will see you guys soon in my next video. God bless.